Good morning, everyone. This is drlizmedium.com. I'm here this morning to share with you a sermon I gave at a local church known as the Church of Love and Light in Farmington, Connecticut. The sermon was given back in August. It's taken me this whole time until October to get it ready with PowerPoints, but here we are, better late than never. So the topic is about channeling. What is it? It's a very short, simple, to the point set of PowerPoints. So let's do a screen share and let's get started. And here we go. What is channeling? So the term channeling, where does it come from? Channeling, let's see if we can get this a little better. There we go. Okay. So the term channeling was popularized during the second half of the 20th century. And it was done in part to distance practitioners from the term mediumship, because prior to that, during the first half of the 20th century, there had been a small number of spiritualist camps that had been investigated for fraud during physical mediumship. And as a result, in the second half of the century, a group of people or groups of people decided that they didn't want to be associated with that unfortunate event that happened. So they started to use the term trance channeling, and that term gained in popularity and credibility and was much more readily accepted. Of course, today, in 1921, the term physical mediumship or just mediumship is much more popular, and so it's not as much a problem. But back then, it was good to change it to trance channeling. Some of the early uses of the term trance channeling were by Edgar Cayce and Jane Roberts. Edgar Cayce was the first medium to begin to use the term when he did his sessions. He's known also as the sleeping prophet. If you are not already aware of this, he would basically take a long nap and talk while he was sleeping, and people would record down what he was saying. He channeled a lot of good things, including past life stories about people, but even more importantly, alternative ways of treating medical conditions. Really good stuff. I've used some of it on myself. So he became very well. His work really wasn't well known until after his passing in 1945. In the 1960s, some people started to write about his work, and it became more and more popular. However, the term channeling really first became associated with, even though Edgar Cayce had used it to begin with, became associated with Jane Roberts. She was a channeler. She began channeling in the 1960s and continued until she passed over in 1984. She published many books in which she channeled a being by the name of Seth. That really wasn't his name that he started out with initially. It was, I don't remember the name. It was something like John Joe or some normal name, but the spirits that were working with this particular spirit that's known as Seth, and Seth decided to rename themselves Seth. It would just be easier and it sounded better. I have a feeling it sold a little better too. Millions of copies were sold, and she did this not through sleeping, but through automatic writing. Now, channeling, it's important to know, is an ancient and worldwide activity. It's been around as long as human beings have been around. And basically what is happening is you're sensing and communicating with non-physical beings. This could be done verbally, through automatic writing, through any kind of artwork, dance, trance states, poetry. My goodness, you can even channel your grandmother when you're trying to make her apple pie, or your mother when you're trying to make a recipe that only she knew how to do it just right. I mean, gardening, anything. It's a major part of human consciousness and experience. It's nothing to be afraid of. It's not going away. I don't know that there exists a civilization, a culture, a time period where there was not some kind of term that referred to what we call mediumship or channeling. Some words in the past or even present now: shaman, witch doctor, healer, medicine man, fortune teller, oracles, seers, soothsayers, savants, visionaries, priests, gurus, prophets, saints, mystics, holy ones, light workers, initiates, adepts, masters, juju, whatever. It's been around all over the planet for a very long time. Here's a formal definition by a man named Climo, who did a lot of research on channeling in the 1980s. Channeling is the communication of information to or from a physical embodied human being from a source that is said to exist on some other level or dimension of reality than the physical as we know it, and that it is not from the normal mind or self of the channel. So if you're not already familiar, it's from the 80s, but it's a very good book, Climo, Channeling. You can get a secondhand copy off of Amazon.com. So trance channelers are mediums. A rose is a rose by any other name. The difference is, though, channelers do not practice physical mediumship. They exclude that. When channeling, consciousness will temporarily reside in a dimension with little sense of time and space, depending upon how much you go into that trance. Now, it could be a very light state of trance where you have 100% memory recall after the event, or it could be a very deep state of altered consciousness where you remember everything. I'm sorry, you don't remember anything. So you could be a light where we remember everything 100%, or a very deep state where there's no memory recall whatsoever. But you know what? Sleep is a little like that too. You could barely fall asleep and remember everything happening around you, to you can be in such a deep state of sleep and you wake up with no memory recall whatsoever. So that is not such a strange idea. Who or what are we channeling? Well, mostly who or what we channel are people who have passed on and are now living on the other side, so to speak, or in heaven, or whatever you want to call it, as our guides or loved ones or relatives or what have you. But one can also channel, believe it or not, your higher self. You can channel creativity, a general sense of intuition. Again, like I mentioned earlier, drawing, painting, other artwork, cooking, gardening, one's own higher self, dancing. Have you ever put on music and you feel like the movements aren't your own? Where are they coming from? That could be a form of channeling. Even scientific work, lots of times scientists may get their ideas from, I don't know, inspirational source, they might call it. That could be going on. Schoolwork, it can help you with that. Homework. I know when I was studying to become a math teacher, I would sometimes get ideas I felt from help from guides or whatever in trying to understand a specific concept or work through a specific problem or preparing notes for what I was going to be teaching the other day. And by the way, I did teach math in college and a little bit in middle school, but mostly college and university. Also psychology, because my PhD is in psychology, just in case any of you are wondering. Moving on, automatic writing is one of the safest means of channeling, and you can practice it alone or as a group. What's great about automatic writing is that communication starts and ends when you start and end writing. You are the captain of your ship. You should always be the captain of your ship and be the one making the calls when you do any kind of channeling or mediumship. But it is particularly easy to maintain that through automatic writing. Well, I would say also other things like artwork and cooking, things like that. So let's move on. However, Channeling is not always going to be limited to physically living and non-living beings, but can also include, and I quote from Klimo again, alien disembodied intelligences, higher self, the universal mind, intuition, and creativity. Okay, recently we had disclosure about UFOs. So it's easier to talk about this without being made fun of. Let it be known that I am open to the possibility of channeling a variety of intelligences, including aliens, religious figures, and higher beings. I cannot imagine the universe being as vast and large as it is if there are not other beings, intelligences that come and visit us. So yes, aliens would be included with that. However, let's remember such experiences can have a very profound and lasting positive effects on us, and it can occur to mere mortals, regular everyday people. When I gave a demonstration at a local university, I had a student, a young woman, about 18, 19 years old, approached me after class, and she told me she had experienced something when she was a teenager and her family was flying on a plane to go visit France. And there was a great deal of turbulence in the sky. She was very frightened. So she started to pray and pray and pray to the Blessed Mother. And wouldn't you know it, suddenly a very clear picture of the Blessed Mother appeared in front of her, told her she was going to be okay. And immediately after that, she fell asleep, she relaxed, she slept the rest of the way to the trip to France. And that is a good example of an every ordinary day person having an experience with a religious figure or higher being. So it can and does happen. However, discernment is quintessential when doing this kind of work. The problem with intelligences, religious figures, aliens, and so on, is unlike loved ones or family who have passed over, it's difficult to validate through evidential mediumship who or what they really claim to be. So it must be taken within the context of the experience. For example, this young woman was praying and asking for help from a particular being who came through. It's not like she's in communication with the Virgin Mary every single day and is giving people advice on how they should live their life based solely on that. It was the context and the circumstances under which it occurred. Another woman I met was visiting, I believe it's called Guadalupe in New Mexico, and she had an experience with with the Blessed Mother also, and it was extraordinary. It was positive. It affected her life, and I can well believe that that is a valid experience. Okay, however, believing that every single message coming from a non-physical source will always be true is just about the same as believing claims made by a stranger on Facebook. You want to have a little bit of healthy skepticism. Beware skullduggery. Skepticism is reasonable, healthy, and wise. Any spirit guides that you have will be thankful that you are being a little skeptic. They won't have a problem with that because you're the captain of your spiritual ship. If it doesn't feel right, run away as fast as you can. Remember, we attract others like ourselves in life. We attract spirits that are harmonious with our own vibrations. So make sure you're coming from a place of love and not ego. Don't expect to attract good things if you're angry, depressed, have dark thoughts. Try to set a good intent before you begin your work, especially if you're going to do automatic writing or verbal channeling. A prayer to whomever or whatever your place of religion or spirituality is a very good idea. I always like to begin with that. Now, here's interesting thing just to know and be aware of, may or may not apply to you, but just to know and be aware of it. And that is that channeling could be, in some cases, that the person is picking up on thoughts coming from other living people. In other words, it's psychic phenomena. It has nothing to do with mediumship or channeling per se, but you're picking up on information from objects, physical objects, or other physical living people. That's a difference between psychic phenomena and mediumship, and maybe I'll make a YouTube video about that too someday. So, for example, there's a lot of culturally popular thoughts about aliens and ascended masters that are floating around in our culture. You may be channeling that and not an actual alien. So just be aware that that's a possibility. Also, if the spirit is unknown, there's no way to validate who they really are, no matter what their claims are. So if they come in and they smile and they just seem to be offering you support and love, that's one thing. But if they start telling you to do things, how to live your life, you might start to question it. And please don't play around with the Ouija boards, pendulums, and dowsing rods. It's okay in some circumstances to experiment with it, but I would be very careful because, especially with the Ouija board, not so much with dowsing rods and pendulums, but the Ouija board, it's kind of like what I've heard. It's like hitchhiking on a busy highway. You don't know who you're going to pick up. You may indeed attract loved ones and family, but you may not. So why take the chance? Unless you're with someone who's a very practiced medium or channeler and is known to attract good things, I would stay away from that. There's too much uncertainty involved. It's really not a child's game. Again, though, I'm going to go back and remind people that I do believe that communications with higher beings can and do occur, and they can occur by people who are not mediums, channelers, or psychics can definitely experience them. Us mere mortals who are everyday people. Yes, the Blessed Virgin, Socrates, Tesla, Jesus, Shiva, all these beings, you may find you have a profound and amazing experience, depending upon the context with which in it occurs. Just remember, though, not to get carried away. Use discernment. Remain grounded both in this world and the next. Don't forget we have a rational brain, and watch the ego. People are usually, when they're going to be taken in by the non-physical, it's usually the ego that gets them. Don't be easily taken in by mischievous spirits. Listen to your intuition and don't be afraid to question. If it feels too good to be true, it probably is. So walk away quickly, run, just get out of there, stop it, whatever. Greek adages to remember when you're doing this work, which will help keep you out of trouble and offer you a certain kind of protection. Know thyself. If you know your weak points, you're less likely to be vulnerable to flattery. Do nothing to excess. So remain balanced and grounded, err on the side of caution. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. If it's happening 24/7, if it's interfering with your everyday ability to live, if it's interfering with your everyday life, ability to make a living and to interact with other people, to have normal relationships, it's probably too much and you need to cut back, and you have to tell your guides or whoever it is you're working with to cut back. If they are worth half their weight in silver, forget gold, the silver, they will understand because they want you to be the captain of your ship. If they don't, you got a problem. Surety brings room. Question everything, no matter how confident you are about it. Do not assume. When I was in the Army, they told me not to assume. I remember an Army captain told me, if you assume, you make a ASS out of you and me. So let's not fall into that trap. So with that, channeling is nothing to be afraid of. Don't be afraid to try it. Drawing, sculpture, painting, artwork, writing, even automatic writing, poetry, science and mathematics, cooking, gardening, dancing, all these things. Communicate with your higher self, communicate with the universe. Open yourself up to good things, but just don't do it from a place of ego, but do it from a place of love, as people say. When practiced within reasonable parameters, channeling can bring much joy and happiness. And always remember to reach for that which is bigger and better than ourselves. And in closing, I'd like to acknowledge that all the pictures are from pixabay.com. The free images are royalty-free stock. Here is a listing of my references if anybody would like to follow up. And in the bottom right-hand corner is a picture of me and my website. Please do not hesitate to contact me. Read up what I have to say on some websites. I have some interesting links, not just to other YouTube videos, but to like how to have a good reading coming out from research done by actual researchers who are doing work in this area. And with that, I will stop share and wish you all a wonderful remaining day. God bless everybody, and Namah Shivaya.